Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm looking at the 2026 US House elections and doing my first 2026 House map prediction after the 2025 elections have just taken place, now almost a week ago, about 6 days ago. So obviously we saw the Democrats do very well in Virginia, New Jersey, New York City, but also around the country in special elections like in Pennsylvania and Georgia as well. So I'm doing the predictions now on the 2026 map to reflect how I think things are going to go. Now, first things first, there are a few very important factors that play into how this election overall could go. Like with the 2025 elections, a large one could potentially be the approval rating of the incumbent president. Donald Trump at this current point in time is at the lowest approval rating for his second term at 42.9% approved to 54.2% disapprove. Now, this can obviously change a lot over the next year, but he's currently at negative 11.3%, which could have played a pretty decently large part in why Democrats did so well on election night about a week ago. Another important characteristic also, especially for the House elections, is the generic congressional vote, where Democrats are now currently leading over the Republicans 46.1 to 42%. Now, a 4.1% win for the Democrats is actually the largest number we've seen in a pretty long time for this metric. The only closest one that we got was around August, where Democrats are up 3.9. Now, overall, it's been decently competitive, around 1 to 2 points or so throughout most of October. Now, coinciding with the elections, on the same date, fell to Democrat 3.6. Now it's Democrats up 4.1. Just to give you an idea of what that means and what that statistic's important, Democrats leading by 4.1. In the 2024 House map overall, Republicans won by about 2.8%. So going from 2.8 for the Republicans up to 4.1 for the Democrats would overall be a shift of roughly 6.9% towards the Democrats from 2024 to 2026 on the House level. So in 2024, when the Republicans won 220 House seats, Democrats won 215, everything remaining equal on the same map, Democrats would win 235, Republicans would win 200. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the case for 2026, as there are factors that are more important than just the generic vote, but also the Republicans in a lot of states and Democrats now in some states have redrawn their congressional maps to try and give their parties a little bit of an added boost at winning these elections. So I'm going to go through today's video, go through each state, how I think ultimately it's looking like right now. And this is probably going to be the most Democratic advantage House video I've done to this date after how well the Democrats did on last Tuesday. As for Alabama, pretty much everything's going to remain the way it is, pretty solidly red, solidly blue districts. I know there is the question of will the Voting Rights Act lawsuit that the Supreme Court is supposed to hear at some point next year. If that's overturned, that can give the Republicans a lot more seats, but obviously that's just hypothetical speculation at this current point in time. Can't really account for that in today's video, but Alabama would remain the way it is. Alaska, unless Mary Peltola decides to make a run for this race, which it sounds like she's leaning more towards running for either Senate or governor, then for House, Nick Begich will probably hold on and keep Alaska red. Arizona is where the first test is going to be for the Democrats. Right now, I think given how these races went in 2024, we can go to Arizona here. Arizona won voted for the Republican Dave Schweiker by 3.8% last time. Now, he is not running again. He is running for, I believe it's governor in the Republican primary, so that's going to be an open race. And Juan Ciscomani won by 2.5% in 2024. Given the shift rating from the last time around, both of these would fall into the lean Democratic category. And seeing as one of them is going to be an open race, I think it's a little bit more likely that we could see Arizona 1 narrowly flip to the Democrats. I could certainly see both of these races staying red, but I think ultimately 1 and 6 are going to be very narrow flips for the Democrats after what we saw in the 2025 elections. So that's Arizona. Arkansas is going to remain all GOP as it currently is. California is going to be very fascinating as they just redrew their map. They're already guaranteeing a few flips. California 1, held by Doug LaMalfa, is now a Democratic flip. Kevin Kiley, California 3, is now a guaranteed Democratic flip. We also have down here, Darrell Issa, California 48, is going to be very, very close. In the 2024 election, before the map was redrawn, his district went red by 18.6%. Ken Calvert was 3.4 in California 41. Now the map has been redrawn, so it's definitely a different ball game here. As for how it's going to go, I think Darrell Issa probably narrowly loses re-election. It's still a toss-up, so he has a chance to win. But I think given how California is likely going to turn out and vote, I think it may be like a California 45 situation where ultimately things are very, very close. But I think we see California 48 narrowly flip to the Democrats in that scenario there. Overall, in California 45 would likely stay blue as well. As for the two really close races up in the middle of the state, you have Adam Gray in California 13 and California 22 with David Valadao. Both of these are going to be very competitive, but they were redrawn to give the Democrats a stronger chance of winning. And with the 2026 election environment of being roughly a 7-point swing for the Democrats, a 4-point victory, I think we'd see both of these narrowly flip for the Democrats, giving only the Republicans roughly about, I think, 4 seats in California, 1, 2, 3, 4, after the redistricting effort of California Proposition 50. So that'll put the Democrats up at 210, Republicans at 211. Colorado's going to be very interesting. I think California 4 stays red with Lauren Boebert, but I think it falls down into likely Republican. Now for Colorado 8, with Gabe Evans, this was super close in 2024, only voting red by roughly 0.73%. So given the swing from 2024 to 2026, we can expect this district is going to be one of the first seats that if the Democrats win back the House, Colorado 8 is probably going to be a big reason why. Now, 2 races that I think are going to be a little bit under the radar are Colorado 5 with Jeff Crank and Colorado 3 with Jeff Hurd. In 2024, Crank won Colorado 5 by 13.8. I think that one's likely to stay in the GOP hands, but Hurd only won Colorado 3 by roughly 5 points. So I think that one could potentially get very close as well. And in a better election environment, based on how the map trended, it actually has that race nearly flipping to the Democratic side if everything remains the same in that one. So this one's going to be very close to watch in Colorado 3. I think it very narrowly stays in the lean GOP category of under 5 points, but that could certainly be a very important one to watch for on election night. But Lauren Boebert falling under 15 points, even in a redder district, I think could potentially happen as well. So that's Colorado. Connecticut's going to remain all solid for the Democrats. The 5th district may be under 15 points, but I think that one will stay blue for sure. Delaware at large with Sarah McBride will stay blue. Florida is going to be interesting because I do think Florida will ultimately redraw their congressional map. Ron DeSantis has said multiple times that he wants to, but based on the current congressional map of Florida, which until that changes, I'm not going to change the map at this current point in time, but based on the current map, I think it's pretty much going to remain the way it is. Anna Paulina Luna and Darren Soto and Jared Moskowitz are the only competitive districts in this current map that could potentially go one way or the other, but in a blue wave election, I think Moskowitz holds on, I think Soto holds on, but I also think Anna Paulina Luna holds on as that district 4 to 13 has trended more in the GOP direction in recent election cycles. So I think Florida remains the way it is for now. Georgia overall, the way the districts are drawn, there aren't too many competitive ones. Again, if the map changes with a Supreme Court ruling next year, that may affect it, but based on the current map, I think it remains the way it is, all solid GOP or solid Democrat. Hawaii, both districts will remain solid Democrat there. Idaho will remain solid GOP. Illinois is going to be interesting because J.B. Pritzker's also talked about potentially redrawing the map. I think one of his top targets is one of the 3 Republican seats in Illinois 16, Illinois 15, and Illinois 12. I think the most likely district would trying to draw in some of these greater Chicago areas and try and draw out Illinois 16 in all likelihood. But again, until that changes, I think this map stays essentially the same that it is. Indiana's fascinating because President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance have been really strong going after Indiana, trying to get them redraw their map. The number 1 target for them is Indiana 1 with Frank Mervyn, and that is certainly one. There's been some maps talking about trying to draw out Indiana 7 with Andre Carson, but I think if that does happen, it's more likely going to be Indiana 1 that ultimately flips. But then again, like with Florida, even though I think it's going to get redrawn, at this current point in time, it has not yet been redrawn. So based on the current map, I think it stays in the Democrats with 2 seats and the Republicans with the other 9. So that's Indiana. Iowa is going to be very fascinating to watch because you have a very close race in Iowa 1 and a very close race in Iowa 3. Both of these in 2024 were very close. Marinette Miller Meeks only won by 0.19% against Christina Bohannon, and Iowa 3 Zach Nunn won by 3.8% in that race. Based on the trends map, both of these are projected to be for Democrats if the map shifts the exact same way it did from 2024 to 2026 with everything else being equal. So this is certainly two districts the Democrats are hoping to win. I disagree in the margins from the map. I think we see Iowa 1 go lean Democratic, which is under 5 but more than 1. Whereas Iowa 3, Zach Nunn is running again. President Trump convinced him not to run for governor and to run for re-election, and that may ultimately keep the seat red. But if the Democrats have a blue enough wave, coupled with Rob Sand being at the top of the ticket, I think we may possibly see Iowa 3 narrowly go into the tilt Democratic category. It seems a little bit crazy as Iowa's become much more of a red state in recent election cycles, but we did see this very similarly happen in, I believe it was 2018, where the map obviously was a little bit different, but we had Iowa 3 being blue in 2018, Iowa 3 was blue in 2020, and then Iowa 3 flipped red in 2022 only by 0.69%. So it's always a very close district, and I could certainly am seeing this one ultimately flipping these two seats for the Democrats. But I think the GOP holds Iowa 2 and Iowa 4, even though both incumbents are not running for re-election. One's running for Senate, one's running for governor. So that's Iowa. Kansas, the effort by the Republicans to redraw its congressional map in Kansas 3 seems to essentially be dead in the water, so the Democrats should be holding on to that third district no matter what. Whether I believe Sherry Davids is now going to run for re-election now that the seat will not be drawn out, but she could still potentially run for governor. But even then, I think we're going to see this race ultimately remain in Democratic hands. Kentucky, the only competitive race is the 6th district with Andy Barr. This one in 2024 was the 26-point victory, so I don't think we're going to see too much of a competitive race there. The only one to keep an eye out for is the Republican primary in Kentucky 4 with Thomas Massie. President Trump's trying to primary him out, so that could be a very interesting situation there. Louisiana, the way this map is drawn, these two districts will be safe for the Democrats, the rest all safe for the GOP. Now for the state of Maine, we know the 1st district is going to be a safe win for the Democrats. Maine 2, however, is characterized as a flip going from blue to red as Democratic incumbent Jared Golden, who's more of a moderate member of Congress of the Democratic Party, is not running again, and this 2nd district is a pretty red, reliable district. It voted at the presidential level for Donald Trump in 2024 by about 9 points, and as a video I did a few days ago going over this district, even when it ultimately voted for Janet Mills in 2022, when it was Paul LePage versus Janet Mills, LePage still won this district by 2 points. So we're going to be seeing Paul LePage, the former Republican governor, facing off against either Matt Dunlap or maybe another Democrat, but I think this race ultimately goes red. I do think it goes a little bit under 5 points, or right around 4.5%, because I do think there will be a pretty strong Democratic wave, but I do think it stays red for the Republicans and flips from blue to red. Maryland, again, the 1st district, if they want to try and redraw the map and get that one out, that could be a possibility, but for now, the map is going to remain the way it is. Massachusetts, every single congressional district is going to remain blue, not really any races that are going to be competitive in 2026. Michigan has a handful that are going to be pretty competitive. 2 being Michigan 7 with Tom Barrett and Michigan 10 with John James. Now, Barrett is running for re-election. John James is not. This is going to be an open race in those 2 districts. Michigan voted for Tom Barrett by 3.7% in 2024, John James by 6.1%. Now, both of them were very close in 2022. Lisa Slotkin won it by 5.4% against Tom Barrett, and in 2022, John James won by 0.49%. So both of these could ultimately be very close. I think it's more likely than not we see the Republicans hold on to Michigan 10 of these 2 districts if they are going to hold on to one. And given the election wave environment, it does project Democrats would very narrowly flip Michigan 6 and win Michigan 7. So as for the map right now, I personally think the Democrats win back Michigan 7, especially if it's a big enough wave for Tom Barrett to go down. I just do narrowly think, even without John James in this race, I think we're probably going to see a very close win for the Republicans in Michigan 10. When you look at the Cook PVI for this district overall, it is Republican +3, so it's going to be right around that number of flipping or not flipping, but I think the Republicans barely hold on there. But I do think Michigan 7 does flip back to the Democrats. So now that's Michigan. In Minnesota, the only competitive district of note is going to be Minnesota 2 with Angie Craig, who is not running again. It is an open race. But again, given the election environment, I do expect this district will remain for the Democrats. Mississippi is going to remain 3 for the GOP, 1 for the Democrats there. Missouri, we already know there's going to be a flip. One of the Democrats' districts in the 5th with Emmanuel Cleaver has been redistricted and will be a solid win for the GOP. So now there's only one Democratic district in the state of Missouri. That was one of the first gerrymandering redraws we saw in this redistricting cycle. Montana, I expect both Montana 1 and Montana 2 will remain to the GOP. The first district may be the more competitive of the two, but I think they'll both remain in Republican hands. Nebraska, the only district that's usually competitive, is Nebraska 2 with Don Bacon. This has been a top target of the Democrats for a few cycles now. It voted for Don Bacon by 1.9% over Tony Vargas in 2024. For president, Kamala Harris defeated Donald Trump by 4.7% here. Don Bacon's also more of I'd say establishment Republican, breaking with his own party and criticizing his own party, which may have helped him actually win re-election a few times now. Now I think we see this district ultimately flip to the Democrats in 2026. We may even see it happen by more than 5 points when everything is said and done. This could be one where the Republicans may try and redraw the map to try and stop them from losing this district, but unless that happens, I think we're going to see Nebraska too flip for the Democrats. Nevada, when they redrew their map, they did it with in mind with them having about 3 districts that were going to be pretty solid for the Democrats and 1 pretty much guaranteed for the GOP, and I think we're going to see that happen again. I don't see how Susie Lee in Nevada 3 loses in 2026 with the election environment after the 2025 elections. I think we see all 3 of those districts continue to vote for the Democratic candidates. New Hampshire could be a little bit interesting that Chris Pappas is retiring and is running for U.S. Senate. So the first race in the first district is open. But again, this is also a race where the daughter of Jeanne Shaheen, Stephanie Shaheen, is running on the Democratic side. The early polling shows she's likely to be the nominee. The Republican primary is currently wide open without one clear GOP leading candidate. Also, when you look at the Cook PVI of this district, Chris Pappas turned what was once a Trump +2 district, then an even district, now Democrat +2. I don't think there's any way the Democrats are going to lose this one in 2026. Both will remain in Democratic hands. New Jersey, which we just talked about for a while now, is going to be very interesting because one district is up that could be competitive in New Jersey 9, but one district we know for sure will be competitive is Tom Keene in New Jersey 7. Now, Tom Keene won in 2024 by about 5.4% against the Democrat Altman, but he won for the first time in 2022 against the Democrat Tom Malinowski by 2.8%. Now, overall, though, we saw a massive shift towards the Democrats in the 2025 New Jersey governor's race, including in some of the areas that this district represents. Sussex County voted 59-40 for Chitterelli, 59-41 in Warren, but Hunterdon County only voted 52-47. Morris County voted 50.2 to 49.3 for Sherrill over Chitterelli. So these key areas that part of the district does encompass did trend significantly towards the Democratic side, which could potentially hurt Tom Keene's chances at winning re-election here. Now, according to the shift map overall, it would be about a lean Democratic win. So as for how this goes in 2026, I think there's a very real chance that New Jersey 7 ends up being one of the closest races of the night, where just given the election tilt, I think we barely see New Jersey 7 narrowly flip to the Democrats, and sort of a shock of New Jersey's not exactly the toss-up state Republicans were hoping it was going to be. I think the proof of that might have been election night. It could potentially still stay red, but I think this is going to be a very close race in the midterms to watch out for in New Jersey 7. New Mexico, the only competitive race is New Mexico 2 with Gabriel Vasquez, who won this race in 2022 by 0.7 and 2024 by 4.2% against the Republican Yvette Herrell. Now, this is overall a even race, but given the election environment, I think we're probably going to see a win here of right around 4.5 to 5 points, if not maybe a little bit more, going into the likely Democratic category. New York's going to be interesting. As for upstate New York, I don't think too much changes. I think we see Josh Riley narrowly hold on, maybe expand his margins a little bit from the last election. Mike Lawler's interesting because he could potentially be in trouble. He might not be, though. He won by 6.3%. He also is more on the moderate end of the Republican Party. Overall, the projections would have him barely losing in 2026, so Lawler could be a potential target of the Democrats to try and win there. But I think I'm going to very narrowly have Lawler hold on there by under 1 point and win that one. As for New York City overall and Long Island, New York City will pretty much remain the way it is. Long Island, though, you have some close races in New York 3 and New York 4 with Laura Gillen. I think they both remain with the Democrats, but that could potentially be very close, especially if the map gets redrawn. North Carolina, there's already an automatic Democratic flip here. In North Carolina 1 with Don Davis, it was a pretty decently strong Democratic district in 2024, voting, no, it's pretty close, 1.7% over the Republican. Buckhout in 2022, it voted blue by 4.7%. That was more the election I was thinking of. Now it's been redrawn to being more of a Republican district, and we're probably going to see Republicans win there in North Carolina and keep an extra GOP seat. North Dakota at large will stay red. Ohio, they've redrawn the congressional map where now Marcy Kaptur seems to be a little bit in trouble of losing this time around in 2024. The new map for Ohio lists it at Republican plus 10.5 based on the Trump margin from 2024. So even with the shift from 2024 to 2026 being in the Democratic favor, we should still see this race probably be a win for the Republicans of at least 1 to 5%. So Ohio 9 stays as lean for the Republicans. Ohio 13, however, got kind of redrawn to being more of a Democratic reliable district to guarantee Ohio 9 would be a little bit more of a solid Republican one, and Ohio 1 would become more competitive. I think Amelia Sykes overall ends up winning by a likely Democratic margin. Ohio 1 is going to be really interesting for how this one plays out. It voted for Greg Landsman last time around. It went Republican by only 1.9% in 2024. It got redrawn to being more of a competitive district that the GOP could win, but one where I think with the election environment, I think with the Democrats narrowly will hold on here and kind of be like, hey, the Republicans dropped the ball of trying to draw out two very competitive seats in Ohio. I think it will narrowly go to the Democrats for this race. Oklahoma will remain the way it is, Oregon as well. As for Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is going to be a very important one to watch for, especially after the elections where the Democrats did very well in the state Supreme Court elections. It's also going to be coinciding with the governor election versus Josh Shapiro versus Stacey Garrity. Depending on that election matchup, if Garrity can keep it close, Republicans may have a chance at keeping all these competitive races. If Josh Shapiro wins another blowout election like he did against Mastriano in 2022, this could be a scenario where the Democrats sort of run the table and win very large here. The district I think is most likely to flip is PA 7 with Ryan McKenzie, which only voted for him by about 1 point in 2024. It was a lean Democratic win back in 2022. The ratings have it as a likely Democratic win for 2026 on the flip, but I think it's going to be pretty competitive even with Shapiro running. I think PA 7 does ultimately narrowly flip though. PA 10 with Scott Perry, it was pretty reliable in 2022, voting for 7.7% for Scott Perry, but then 2024 was only a 1.3% win. With the shifts in this race, I think this may ultimately be the one where the Democrats sort of catch the Republicans sleeping, and we see Scott Perry narrowly lose this race in sort of one of the, there's always been a shocking election loss, like we had Bob Casey in 2024 in Pennsylvania. I think we may see Scott Perry in 2026 as a shocking election loss. The last one is PA 8, where Rob Bresnahan voted by 1.6% over Matt Cartwright in 2024 after voting by 2.4% for Cartwright in 2022. I think this one's going to be very close. Again, the shifts show this one becoming a likely Democratic win, and I think we see a very narrow Democratic flip in Pennsylvania 8. This would bring the Democrats up to 221, Republicans still at 210. We still have a few more to go over. Rhode Island will remain the same. South Carolina will remain the same. South Dakota remains. Tennessee remains. Texas is going to be interesting because they did redraw their congressional map. They drew out quite a handful of Democratic seats here. You can look in the Dallas area, where I do believe they did draw out one Democrat. Let's see if we can find it here. Yes, Texas 32, Julie Johnson's district has been drawn out. In the Houston area, Al Green's district has been drawn out. He is running, I believe, for a different race. So that district has been drawn out as well. And then in the Central Texas area, the districts have been drawn out as well. Texas 35 is now drawn differently, and there's going to be a few Republican flips here. So also we have a very competitive race in Texas 34. Vicente Gonzalez now lean for the GOP, and Texas 28 for Henry Cuellar, where he won in that old district in 2024 by about 5.6%. So I think it's going to be a tough race, but kind of like with Ohio, where the Republicans may potentially still lose the race given the election environment, I think we see Henry Cuellar overall nearly hold on and win by under 1 point. Utah, it looks like the Republicans avoided any legal issues there with redrawing their map, and the 4th district still remains red for the GOP, so they should be all right in that one. Vermont is going to be blue. Virginia, we just talked about New Jersey, now it's Virginia's turn. Virginia also has chatter recently of potentially redrawing their congressional map before 2026. If they do redraw their congressional map, for sure their top 2 targets are going to be Virginia 2 with Jen Kiggins and Virginia 1 with Rob Whitman. Now, it's possible they could try and redraw the map a certain way and really utilize the Northern Virginia, D.C. suburbs, and maybe try and draw out Ben Cline in Virginia 6 or maybe John McGuire in Virginia 5. But based on the current map right now, Jen Kagan's Virginia 2 is certainly the Democrats' top target. Overall, Virginia 2 voted by 3.8% for Kagan's in 2024 after beating Elaine Aloria by 3.4% in 2022. Now, the Virginia Beach area, depends on the race you looked at, it voted pretty blue in the governor's race, 55-45, Chesapeake 56-44, and the attorney general's race, it still voted blue, but it was a lot closer, 50.3 to 49.5. So I think that Jen Kagan's could be a very strong candidate in this race and a strong contender to keep this one in the Republican hands. But overall, given the election environment, I think it'll be a little bit too strong based on how turnout went last time, where I think we see the Democrats nearly flip this race by under 1 point, especially if Elaine Aloria does jump into this race to try and get her old seat back. We could see this one potentially narrowly flip. As for the Virginia's 1st district, I think for now Rob Whitman is still decently safe at holding on there, but that could be an important one to watch for. Washington, the only competitive race going to be out there is Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, more of a moderate member of the Democratic Party as well. But given how the election environment is projected to be, I think we see her win, and by a pretty comfortable margin. Lastly, West Virginia is going to be safe. Wisconsin, the last competitive race with Derek Van Orden. This is a top target of Democrats, has been for a few cycles now, voted by 2.7% in 2024, I believe, against Rebecca Cook, the Democratic candidate. Won't load, that's okay. Against Rebecca Cook, she's running again. Going to be a very close race. The margins have it shifting to lean Democratic, and I think we see something where it's about a 1 point Democratic win. So following the 2025 elections, right now I have the House map looking something like this, where Democrats win about 225 House seats, Republicans currently scheduled to win 210, giving the Democrats a narrow House majority, but certainly a larger House majority than the Republicans have right now. You need 218 seats to hold the majority, so the Democrats have from 218 to 225, roughly about, 7 to 8 House seat majority in the U.S. House, and would play a pretty decently sized role in stopping a lot of President Trump's agenda. Now, obviously, the elections just happened, and we're seeing essentially President Trump and the Republican Party at their lowest approval ratings in the year of 2025 thus far. So this could certainly change in the next 11 months or so, or 12 months or so, heading into the midterms. But at this current moment in time, and based on how the current congressional maps are drawn, I personally think the Democrats are favored to win back the House. And even with the redistricting efforts of several GOP states, the Democrats are still on track to win back the House and pick up quite a number of seats. And this isn't even like a Democrat best case scenario either. There are some seats I gave to the GOP that I think the Democrats could certainly win. Now, if the Republicans do turn things around and can improve their numbers and get the government open again and such, we may see a turnaround maybe, and the Republicans could have a path to winning the House back in 2026. So it's all subject to change, but right now, first prediction after the 2025 elections, I think we'd see Democrats get 225 House seats, Republicans getting around 210. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Stay tuned as I have other election predictions coming out over the next few weeks or so that I think you're going to enjoy seeing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video.